Hello, I'm Mary and I'm Subi's mum, and I've been asked to talk about disability, activism and feminism today, because as you can see I'm a fairly elderly woman who was introduced to feminism a very long time ago in the 1970s, and it was feminism that really led me to disability activism. Feminism has helped me in a lot of ways, of course. It helped me as a woman with a very visible mobility impairment to be comfortable with my body and happy with the way I am. Also to be satisfied with pleasing myself about what I wear and how I look, and to be able to ignore fashion. Bearing in mind fashion back in the day was kind of much more limited and restricted. On the other hand, my disability activism has helped me accept myself utterly as a woman. So to trace my journey, it was words that really began to link the two things together for me. So I was learning from feminism about how damaging it is to women to be called chick and cow and babe and all the other horrible words, that animal words in particular, that we get called. And I started thinking about the fact that people always talked about my good leg and my bad leg, and when my back was very painful, my bad back, and realised that that was damaging too, and I didn't want to think of any part of myself as being bad. So I wrote a letter to Spare Rib, which was the feminist magazine of the time, just saying that on that basis I was beginning to think that perhaps disabled people were oppressed too, were an oppressed group. And that led to a social worker contacting me and saying she was very interested in the letter and would I come and run a session for her team. I did that, and it was really the birth of my career as a disability trainer and consultant freelance for many years. I'm really happy that I took that chance and wrote to Spare Rib. But as all of that kind of increased in the amount of time I was putting into both feminism and disability activism, it became apparent to me that the women's movement was really not including disabled people. There was no effort to bring us in. Our issues were not addressed. Information was not provided in accessible formats, and venues tended not to be accessible. So even back then our own issues were so critical that it seemed more productive in the end to work with other disabled people rather than slog away at the women's movement. And it still feels that way, in fact currently even more so, because our lives are seriously under threat from the government at the moment. But just to kind of give you an example of why I feel that I have to work harder for and with other disabled people. We all know that women are often seriously at risk of abuse of one kind or another, especially from partners. But disabled women are at an even greater risk, and not only that, if they are abused and they do try to get away, refuges are often not accessible for them. And I thought I'd give an example of a blind woman I met many years ago, who had a partner living with her. He'd made himself indispensable to her, but he was raping her regularly, and she just didn't have the courage to do anything about it because she would lose the help that he was giving her. So that's just an example. it does leave me thinking that the effort has to come primarily from the feminist movement, because we have very little physical or emotional energy left after we've been campaigning on our own behalf. Subi knows I've just had a migraine for a couple of days after my latest action that she supported me in. So, having said that, I was particularly pleased to be asked to do this blog for the Pesky Danes. I also have to say that the disability movement has a great deal of work to do. Like any other, we're dominated by white, middle class, English people. It used to be primarily men. At the moment there are a lot of women at the forefront, but of course that can change again. But I do find myself often having to challenge people on racism, for instance. So we've got to do a lot of work. We have to be really alert to every oppression going, to intersectionality, doing what we can about it, and we have to learn.